and welcome back to another full-length pick a card on my channel. I've been admittedly more focused on uploading shorts, especially over the summer when things were relatively busy for me, but things are slowing down. Things are awesome. You may also notice I have a new counter background, and that's because I moved in with my boyfriend. So things are really great. Anyway, today's reading, let's get back into you all. Today's reading is all things September 2025. Obviously, this is a timeless reading. So if you are drawn to this reading and it is December 2030, feel free to watch. There may be some messages in here for you. But yeah, all good things. So really excited to look at the energy for this upcoming month. I feel super excited for the fall season and especially coming to the end of 2025 and into 2026. So I'm hoping to do a monthly check-in every single month leading up to the new year, which will be great. But today's all about September. So let's go ahead and introduce the piles. So as usual with my readings, we have 3 piles to choose from. Pile 1, which has this heart-shaped white turquoise gem stone. So if you are drawn to pile 1, or if you are drawn to the white turquoise, there might be a message in there for you. Pile 2 is this gorgeous opal heart-shaped. I love these heart-shaped little stones. I think they're so cute. So we have opal for pile 2, if you're drawn to that one. And then for pile 3, we have the blue aventurine, which is one of my favorite. It's just so pretty. So yeah, so if you are drawn to pile 3, or if you're drawn to the blue aventurine, there could be a message in pile 3 for you. Now, I feel like the biggest thing that people ask about, like how to choose a pile or which pile is right for me, you really have to kind of reflect on that inner voice and really ask yourself, okay, if I were to walk away from this reading, which pile has the most or the best sort of information for me, or the message that is meant to find me? Take a moment if you need to, pause the video, maybe walk away, come back, to really kind of reflect on the cards and really kind of get at that place versus just choosing, whichever stone you might be drawn to, for example. So really, whichever pile calls out to you. If you are drawn to multiple piles, that is totally okay, totally normal. There might be 2 messages out here for you, so feel free to watch both of those videos. So anyway, let's go ahead and jump right in, and I will see you all in pile 1. Or actually, whichever pile you choose. All right, bye. Okay, hello everyone who chose pile 1. So if you chose the white turquoise heart-shaped crystal, then this is for you. I don't know why in the intro I was calling them stones. I don't know. So sorry about that. Just having a little bit of a moment of insanity, I guess. But yeah, they are crystals and they are heart-shaped and they are adorable. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started with your reading. So pile 1, we have a lot of great stuff to get into today. I'm going to start off with just a general overview. Again, this reading is going to be focused on the month of 2025. So definitely like a general overview first. I'll also do a live shuffle for just to get a few cards just around a focus area of your career. And then we'll pull 1 or 2 oracle cards for your love life in September of 2025. But already shuffled these, which you should have seen in the intro. So these are just kind of like your general overview, all things, what is like the general vibe for September of 2025. So let's jump right in. We have the 6 of coins, the 6 of wands, justice. Justice is served. It's like one thing that I always hear. The 9 of cups. Wow, you guys. And the 4 of wands. Okay, so September 2025 for pile 1. I feel like you guys are going to crush it, or at least like the energy is super, super positive. Obviously, like 6 might be, a number for you, just like the number 6 might be a number for you. I'm synesthetic, and this is probably like one of the few times that color for me is showing up, in particular for reading. So the color red might be important to you this month. Namely, September for me is red, 6 is red, 9 is red. And it's just kind of giving me like a big like red vibe. I don't really have much like energy beyond that, but if red or the color red is significant for you, then maybe just take that as an extra sign. Or it's just a fun fact that I'm synesthetic and I'm seeing a lot of red right now. Okay, anyway, jumping back into the cards here. Like I kind of said with when I laid down the justice card, definitely feeling like justice is served. And I feel like a lot of this positivity, a lot of you feeling really like I'm getting the sense, and especially with the Nine of Cups is really drawing me in of just like your cup is full. Maybe you had just like an amazing summer with like friends and family, and you really kind of got back to your roots in a sense. Whether that's, you sort of healed your inner child, or you just kind of are coming into September feeling like renewed and like your cup is full. Basically, this group feels to me like you are starting off this month, and potentially just like the overall general energy for you this month is just that of positivity and success, which we love that, you know? I think, but again, I think it doesn't go without saying that it goes without saying that, I think the justice is kind of playing out in your favor, where maybe leading up to this point, or maybe I'm getting the sense that like the summer was kind of like, or the last 3 months were feeling really good for you as well. But maybe like leading up to a certain point, you had really sort of like put the work in terms of like, maybe like for a while in your life, you felt like things weren't working out. You felt like you would never get to this point. You felt like, there was just like a lot against you. And I think if you do feel like that, or if you did feel like that leading up to this point, it's possible that that was meant to sort of like happen to you to sort of like break you open and just sort of like get at your own sort of like core kind of in a sense, so that you can eventually start to blossom and grow and sort of, like I said earlier, like it feels like this like healing of an inner child and just like a genuine excitement for life. But not to say that that doesn't mean that leading up to this point, you didn't necessarily have those moments of, sadness or despair or like, so basically like what I'm feeling is like the universe sort of like rewarding you with a lot of positive things. On one hand, you might have, I'm getting sort of like a sense of like a financial windfall, or just sort of being guided divinely toward abundance. So like windfall for me could be, like obviously like if you weren't expecting a large sum of money coming in, from like an inheritance or another family member or a friend, or like maybe even like a business deal where like things were kind of like split evenly. Like maybe it could even be like equity, like vesting, for example. So basically like just sort of like a large sum of money that's going to offer you a lot more freedom when it comes to, just like your everyday life. And I think it's going to open up and unlock some doors for you that maybe you didn't think were possible. And that's where this sort of like renewed energy is kind of coming from as well. So there's definitely like an element of like abundance coming in, or just being present in your energy, particularly this month. I think too, like with that, you might feel particularly like not overly successful, but you're going to feel really good. Like people are going to be like, wow, like how did you do it? How did you succeed? How did you get to this point? People might even look at you and be like, wow, like something's changed about you. And it's for the better. It's for the better. So a lot of positive vibes, and just like, again, with the Four of Wands, just like a lot of celebration as well. So there's a lot of things to be really grateful for, especially in the areas of abundance and even like your own general like happiness and emotions. I think there's a lot to be excited for, and it's definitely coming from a place of like the universe giving back to you for what you've put out there. So let's take a look at your oracle card for the month. So we have emotions are running high, obviously. Supermoon. Yeah, I think you're going to just feel absolutely abundant. Emotions are going to be high, but like not in a high strung way, or not in a overly negative way, kind of. So I think it's going to be a good thing that emotions are running high. Like it feels exciting. So this is awesome. Let's pull a couple cards and take a look at your career. Some messages around your career for September of 2025. Okay, we have the Seven of Swords. Four of Swords. We have, actually, I'm going to take all of these because I feel like for whatever reason I need to. So we have the Seven of Swords, the Four of Swords, we have the Four of Cups, or I'm sorry, the Four of Pentacles, the Nine of Cups. So Nine of Cups is definitely a vibe for this month, you all. And then we also have the Three of Cups. So definitely emotions running high, definitely a lot to celebrate still. I think though, and particularly in your area of your career. So I think maybe where this Nine of Cups sort of happiness was coming in initially could potentially be surrounding your career. You might feel really, really fulfilled. Some of you might be in sort of like a leadership position. Or maybe I'm getting almost like a sense too of like you being asked to retire or somebody retiring, and not necessarily like that you're of retirement age. Like maybe you, again, because of this financial windfall, are sort of like hesitant at first, like you think it might be like too good to be true, but eventually you kind of feel the need to kind of like take a step back or to take a different position within your own company. And I think as a result, that kind of like opens up some doors for you to celebrate more, to spend more time with friends and family. Just because there is that sort of like overall energy that's sort of like playing a role here, just like throughout the rest of your month, but definitely in the areas of your career, maybe even like you're because of that windfall and because you're able to kind of like take a step back or even potentially retire from your typical 9 to 5 and you have more free time, maybe you're even stepping into a position of like leading some sort of like community, like or maybe this is something that you're interested in and that's going to give you a lot of like freedom and like happiness of like doing more like volunteer work, giving back to your community, and that in turn gives back to you. It's possible that it has to do with like children. It doesn't necessarily have to be, but or maybe it's just like something that you do sort of like with your childhood friends, maybe just something like I'm getting this like vibe of like taking a step away from like a corporate grind and more into doing work that feels more fulfilling to you. So if that resonates, I think that is definitely a possibility this month for some of you, particularly for your career. And I really hope it does because it sounds fantastic. So let's get a few cards or messages for your love life in September. These are always so hard to shuffle, and I've seen other YouTube or other tarot creators on YouTube like struggle with them as well. I'm going to take this one because it kind of flashed. So this is kind of a message for your love life this month. So if you could do anything, what would it be? The answer dwells in your heart, not in your mind. For the heart is the gateway to the soul. I love that message, particularly when it comes to relating to others. Let's see. Let's get 2 more cards. Ugh. Okay. So we have transformation. Your relationship with one another is about to deepen. Love conquers and transforms all things. Definitely getting that sense too, like, again, if we go back to like the overall energy that we were looking at the beginning of the reading, like it definitely feels like very positive and fulfilling. And obviously like that's overall, right? But overall also includes your love life. So I think, maybe this is really like a time of kind of like transformation, which is what I'm kind of getting. I know this is for career, but it's still like sticking out for me as I'm focusing on your love life right now. Again, like maybe as you're taking a rest from this 9 to 5, your relationships also start to transform, whether they're platonic or friendship or family. You're able to kind of like reconnect with each other in a really, really special and deep way. And I think, again, just going back to the idea that like this change coming in, particularly like with this potential windfall, I think it's going to open up, again, a lot of doors for you and your relationship. So let's kind of like, we can do anything we want right now is kind of like the vibe. And that's obviously going to transform you in many ways. Finally, we have acceptance is the key to inner peace. At times, we must accept things as they are. There is no point trying to change that of which is beyond our control. I love that. I think that's just a great general like message for anyone in a relationship. And I think maybe the message here is like, again, as your relationship potentially could be transforming to a deeper place, like you might be like even more tolerating or accepting of yourself and your partner for who you both really are and really appreciating that this month. So that's always a beautiful message to hear. But Anyway, September 2025 for pile 1 sounds fantastic. I really wish this was my reading. So, but those are all the messages I have for you. I hope this resonated. Please like and subscribe and comment if it did. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Hey, everyone who chose pile 2, if you chose the opal heart-shaped crystal, then this is your reading today. So obviously from the intro, today we're looking at all things 2025. So we're going to start off with your tarot cards, get a little bit into some oracle cards, just giving a general overview for the month of September. Obviously this is a timeless reading, so it doesn't have to be September 2025 when you're watching it, but that is when I'm uploading it. So yeah, we'll be taking a look at a general overview, and then I'll pull some live shuffle cards to take a look at your career for this month, as well as some oracle cards, just a few looking at your love life. So let's go ahead and get started with your general overview. Taking a look at your tarot first, we have the King of Coins, the King of Wands, the Queen of Wands, the Tower, and the Eight of Cups. So we'll get into sort of this this energy in a bit, but immediately what I'm getting, and it doesn't have to be like an actual like male or two males, but there's definitely a lot of like masculine sort of push and pull energy here. And I genuinely feel like you may be sort of like at the center of this. So like if it's not resonating that it's like two actual people in your life, it could be sort of like a push and pull, like head versus, I don't want to say heart, but like head versus heart in a way, or maybe even being logical versus really leading from a passionate place. That's sort of like that dynamic, which I'm feeling like it's like a push and pull between like within you, perhaps of like, okay, this is going to give me the most stability. This is going to bring me a lot of emotional fulfillment in my life. So kind of like this sort of like fork in the road kind of like energy, or it could be two distinct people in your life that are also kind of giving you that vibe. Like one person is kind of giving you the vibe of like, should I maybe take their advice and you know, go down a path of stability versus going down a path of like creative fulfillment, for example. So there's definitely like that sort of like vibe. And I think what's going to be important was kind of like at the center of your reading. I don't know why, but the Queen of Wands is really giving me your energy is, and it doesn't have to be female. It could be, you know, just like the energy. You know, I really think that you're going to have to rely on sort of like a lot of like inner confidence and strength and just being sort of like authentic to who you are, so that these two conflicting dynamics don't necessarily like interfere with sort of your core. And I think that's really going to help you, because I think that there's going to be a moment where this energy, whatever this is, be it two separate people, it could even be, like I said, internal, but it's going to cause a little bit of, I think, somewhat of like chaos or like a healing moment in your life. I do feel like particularly toward the middle to the end of the month, maybe of September, like you're kind of feeling like whatever this is no longer serving you. And at the same time, that sort of decision to leave this chaotic feeling behind is going to feel like the rug is being pulled underneath you in a sense. And it's ultimately going to, I don't say like force you to walk away, but in a sense, like you're going to be leaving this behind. So walking off into sort of like a better place, knowing that, you know, whatever this situation was kind of like led you to this moment of being like, you know what, this no longer serves me. I am leaving this behind. For whatever reason, I'm feeling like the Tower card in this instance, while typically I don't feel this way about the Tower, it almost feels like it's because of your decision to stay true to who you are and to walk away from this sort of like dynamic. That is, it's more of like, it's because of like your choice versus like something that you don't see coming. So it's kind of interesting because I never really typically feel that way about the Tower. Like usually I feel like it's like something you don't see coming, something, you know, you never really thought could ever happen to you. But again, I think it's because you are making the choice, and it's sort of like you're staying in your own power is why this Tower moment is kind of like coming in and just sort of like cleaning house of like any energy that doesn't necessarily suit you anymore as you continue to move on with your life. So let's take a look at your Oracle card for the month, we have Be Bold and Make the First Move. Yeah, I think that's, and cardinal moon, so that maybe that's important for you. Also just trying to see if there's any sort of like numbers that are standing out to me, not in particular, but yeah, I think it's, again, going back to what I was saying about how this is kind of like your own energy, like kind of making the choice to sort of like I don't want to say like give yourself like the tower sort of moment, but it's almost like you are the driving force. You are making the first move versus kind of like the universe making the first move for you. But it's still going to feel a little bit like that tower moment, how they typically feel. But just know that you are empowered to sort of like make those decisions and to walk away, even if it feels painful at first. Let's take a look at your career cards. So I'm going to do just like a life shuffle. Oop. I can take those because it was like 17 cards. Let's get one more. Okay. Oop. Oh, you actually have 4. That's okay. So we have the Chariot, the Ace of Swords, the 2 of Swords, and the Devil. So yeah, it's definitely, and I think a lot of this sort of like earlier energy that I was talking about between sort of like following your head or your heart, or these two sort of like dynamics, whether that's like two people in your life or whatever that is. I feel like particularly like that's going to revolve mostly around your career, because I feel like these cards that I just pulled for your career are almost an extension of that vibe. And again, I don't want to say that to like scare anyone, because obviously the tower energy and like walking away can sound really scary. But again, I really feel like this is your empowered choice to do this, where you might be like a little bit divinely guided to kind of like make a choice finally. But I really feel like there's been this really strong push and pull energy. And I think that like these two people or this energy within you has been kind of like keeping you held back, like keeping you behind. So if that's kind of like resonating, or like that feeling, again, if there's like two people in your life that maybe are kind of like giving you that energy or that vibe, I think right now, and particularly in the month of September, or very soon, I think that you are going to be inspired to finally make the choice to walk away. So it's almost like seeing things for what they really are, especially in your career. Maybe up until a certain point, you really felt like this job or this, career path was like everything you've ever wanted. And then maybe it's kind of like waking up one day and really seeing how much it's like holding you back from like living, an authentic life, or like living to like a lifestyle that you actually want for yourself. So you're going to be able to like kind of like take that blindfold off and kind of see things for like exactly what they are. And I think this is going to come in the form of like, I don't really see it being like the company making the decision for you, but I do think this is like your decision to walk away from this particular job, maybe not career, but maybe this particular job that you're in. So if you're really feeling like you need to kind of move away from that, then I love this for you. Let's take a look at your love life. Same thing. I'm just going to pull some cards. These are always so hard to shuffle. Oop. I'm going to get 3. That's what we did in pile 1. Ugh. Okay. Whoa. Okay. We're going to go with it. Oh, okay. Well, you know what? You got 4. So we'll just go with that, since you got 4 for your career as well. So the first card that you have here is Give Thanks for the Blessings of Love Soon to Come Your Way. So that's really exciting. So maybe, with all this sort of like, I'll call it for what it is, a little bit of like turbulence in terms of like what you'll be walking away from. It seems like in your career, there's some things where, you're kind of like seeing things for like what they really are, potentially making the decision. That's where the decision to walk away comes in. But what's exciting is that makes a lot of room, maybe even for your love life. Like maybe this job that you're going to walk away from and like this chaos and this push and pull dynamic doesn't give you enough time to focus on, a potential partner or your current partner. But basically, what this card is suggesting is that blessings are coming in, and they're coming in the form of love, which is very exciting. And it's because you deserve it. So know that you deserve to be and have all that your heart truly desires. And again, I think what's interesting is going back to the sort of notion that I was mentioning at the beginning of the reading, where this decision to walk away from everything or anything, and maybe again, like taking a look at your love life now, maybe this push and pull dynamic is where you feel is in your love life. Maybe that's like where you're feeling it the most. Maybe you're trying to decide between two people, but then you sort of realize that neither of those people is like good for you. Either way, it's like this idea of like choosing you, and as a result of that, things being completely ripped out of your life and then being replaced with better things, if that makes sense. And I think that's coming in the form of your love life, which is always exciting. All right, your next card is Secret Admirer. Someone has deeper feelings for you than they are letting on. So I think that goes without saying. Maybe some of you have someone from afar that's going to be, coming into your life from more of like a romantic relationship standpoint. Or, maybe someone that you're currently already seeing, dating, or in a committed relationship with, kind of like lets you in or fills you in on their deeper emotions for you, or like a deeper level of commitment, but you didn't know it. So definitely some exciting secrets being revealed in your love life this month. For your third card, we have life is a series of constantly shifting cycles. When we resist change, we resist the natural flow of life and create unnecessary stress. Go with the flow. You'll be surprised where it leads. I think this message is particularly important when it comes to this tower energy and this walking away energy. However that ends up showing up in your life. Again, that really showed up in like this like overview, right? So it wasn't in particularly, well, we saw it a little bit in career more than love life. I think that's to say that it's like a good reminder that like with the ebbs and flows of life, it's really just important to stay grounded, go with the flow. Like I love that message, because even things that might feel painful or disappointing in the moment or whatever that feels like, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad thing. And I think you can learn a lot about yourself and what it is that you want or need out of life during those more shadow moments. So go with the flow, go with the ebbs and the flows. If this is about your career, it seems like there's a lot of good stuff happening in your love life in September. So, maybe focus more on that while your career plays out. So just like kind of like a nice little message, just overall. Obviously this is for your love life, but could tie back to the overall reading as well. And then finally, emotions are a natural and necessary part of life, but they can also distort your perception and cloud your vision. In order to see things clearly, you must let go of resentment. I think for me, the biggest part of that is like, you must let go. It felt like it was kind of like ringing very, very loudly. And that seems to be kind of like the theme for this group. I feel like there's definitely a lot of energy of letting go of what's no longer serving you, be it in your career or some other areas of your life, staying true to yourself, and then obviously moving forward. So anyway, pile 2, those are all the messages I have for you today. I hope this reading resonated. I'll have a lot more exciting readings coming up on my channel. I'm trying to do shorts every single day, so stay tuned for those. If this reading resonated, please comment and like and subscribe. And anyway, I'll see you all in the next one. Bye. Okay, hello everyone that chose pile 3. If you chose the blue aventurine crystal, then this is your reading today. So as I talked about in the intro, we're doing all things about the month of September today. So we'll be taking a look at, we'll be starting off with doing just a general overview for the month of September, just doing like a general energy check-in between some tarot and an oracle card. I'll also be doing a live shuffle and pull, getting some cards around your career so we can take a look at that energy, as well as pulling 1 or 2 or more cards for your love life using these fun little heart-shaped cards. So a lot of good stuff coming up in this reading. So let's go ahead and jump right in. So starting off, we have the Three of Coins. We have the Queen of Cups, Star, the Hierophant, and the King of Cups. Interesting. All right. Okay, so right off the bat, I think one thing that's coming to mind for sure. Well, actually, I just want to note there does seem like there's like a lot of like water energy. So maybe there's some water signs that could be important here. Um, yeah, I think that's kind of like really interesting, particularly with the King and Queen of Cups. But I'm just kind of getting like an overall like aquatic blue theme. Especially you also have like blue aventurine, so it's very like aquatic feeling. So maybe like if a water sign doesn't necessarily like resonate, maybe there's some water that's going to be sort of important in your life in the month of September. Obviously, I think with the cups and taking note of this sort of like water energy, I think one thing that I'm feeling for sure for this group is, and this kind of came up at the end of pile two, but it's almost like going with like the ebbs and the flows of life. Like maybe right now in September, it feels like things are very like fluid. And I think sometimes within that kind of energy, it kind of asks us to kind of like take a step back and like see how we can like master our emotions. And I think that's kind of like really what I'm feeling with like the Queen of Cups and the King of Cups is like, how can you get to a place of like becoming a true master of your emotions? And maybe like for this group, maybe this is sort of like more of like a spiritual reading, like the other groups felt a little bit more like practical. So maybe in September it's really a month for you to do your inner work and to really learn to master those emotions. I think this is something that maybe for some of you like is coming out of like this need to have hope or to like hold on like extra strongly this month. Um, I'm kind of like getting almost, and it's interesting, like, I don't know why I'm getting this like feeling of like someone who goes a little bit deeper like within themselves to really like learn more about what makes them tick. They're particularly around like emotions, their interactions with like other people, and really just sort of like mastering, yeah, like that sort of like that like internalization of when life ebbs and flows, like how you respond and react back out. So it's almost like this month is like as life ebbs and flows, like I keep talking about, like how do you internalize that and then at the same time like externalize that, so that way it's like how are you also sort of like working with others when maybe you're going through like a time when you're being asked to really be the master of your own emotions. I think this is a really specific reading for someone going through like a really spiritual time, because it feels like really spiritual and like very like goddess like as well. You know how sometimes I feel like when I think of like almost like a fairy or something, like where they're very like in control of like their own power and they just like know exactly how their own power works, but then they also know like how that's going to like affect other beings. Such a specific reference. I don't know where that came from in my brain, but that's just kind of like what I'm like envisioning. Like, is someone who is like trying to like get to the point where they are the absolute master or completely in control of their own emotions. Yeah, so that's just kind of like what I'm feeling here for this group. So let's take a look at your your oracle card. More water. So nothing is set in stone. Definitely, yeah, mutable moon. Also a lot of like nighttime energy. I'm kind of feeling like it's like this scene is giving me a lot of nighttime energy. I think in general this deck is a little bit dark, so like, but in particularly like the cups cards in this deck gives me like a lot of like nighttime energy when maybe sometimes like we tend to get in our own heads and emotions about things, but for sure, yeah, the message is overall like again like going back to like that like life is fluid, and I think in the month of September you're going to really be feeling that especially. So that's pretty interesting. So all that to say, let's take a look at some cards, maybe like 2 or 3, maybe even 4 cards about your career. I'm going to take, oh my gosh, you have the Hierophant again. Okay, so that's really interesting that you have that. So 5 might be a number for you. So yeah, I mean, maybe there's again, like with like a lot of the cups and the ebbs and flows here, maybe you're going to be, particularly in your career, being asked you to, um, like sometimes I feel like the Hierophant can be really wise, but yet also at the same time peaceful. And I think in order to kind of like get to that vibe, like it takes a lot of like inner work and inner guidance. And again, this like concept of like mastering the emotions, um, which I think is kind of like a common theme here. You also might be sort of like in your own sort of faith being asked or being tasked with being step with like having to like step up to be some sort of like community leader. Usually don't typically get that with the Hierophant, but it's kind of like calling to me, especially in a career sense. So let's see what else we have. I just thought that was so cool how you have the Hierophant twice. Sorry, making the camera shake. Always fun. Okay, so we have the 3 of Wands. So maybe like for some of you, like as you are, um, I'm getting like this like sense like some of you, like, yeah, like it's like I keep seeing like someone like standing up and like being like a leader within your own community, perhaps like even like in your own faith. But I really also kind of feel like maybe for some of you, you like started to like put yourself out there in a particularly like maybe you're like becoming like a content creator or something like that, and in that you're building a community, and this might feel like a new sort of adventure for you, and maybe that's, I think like eventually it's going to lead you to becoming very successful, quite frankly. I think, if you can kind of take the time now and kind of like going back to like that overall energy of like ebbs and flows. Like I think there's a lot to learn as you get started into content creation. So if you can kind of like start to really like put yourself out there even more, really develop your style, you know, become even like a master of like your own like passion of doing this. And I think speak from the truth of like your own heart and like who you are and like what you believe in maybe. I think that will sort of like help you become successful in a sense. And I think a lot of people will, if this resonates, I think a lot of people will really resonate with you in what you have to put out there. Like there's almost like this feeling of like, maybe with some like these emotions, like how you sort of like gotten to like the place that you're at, and maybe other people can kind of like learn from that. So anyway, if you're interested in doing something like that, or if this is resonating, this might be like a really specific message for somebody out there. I think that's sort of the energy that's really it's really present. It's really kind of like what I'm feeling. So let's take a look at your love life. We'll get maybe 3 messages here. These are always so hard to shuffle. Like I love the hearts, and like these are actually kind of old. I feel like I need to invest in some new cards. I'm gonna get 3. So I've had these forever. I know a lot of other creators on YouTube use these as well. I might just pick from the top because shuffling these like hurts. Okay. Okay. So your first card that you received is Only Time Will Tell. Interesting. So Immediately thought of another Moonology card, which I think like, oh, actually, it is this one. It's nothing is yet set in stone. So that's kind of like interesting because like only that to me like is kind of like it's not determined yet. You have to wait. There's still more that needs to unfold. So I think maybe in the area of your love life this month, you're really going to be sort of, I hate to say this, but like patient, because I think there's something great coming for you. And maybe it's that, like, in this time, again, going back to like the fluidity of life and the concept of ebb and flow, maybe this time isn't a season per se of like working on your love life or your relationships. And it might be about building out a specific career that gives you a lot of abundance, but like this will come like later. We also have healing. Imagine yourself and your beloved surrounded by light. Feel your relationship being healed this very moment. So that might be a very specific, like literal message for some of you out there. If you are in a relationship or with someone, and maybe that's just sort of like a sign or a confirmation for you. But other than that, I do also feel like there might be with this only time will tell sort of card where this might be, again, more of a season of healing in your love life and being more assertive and actionable in your career. So maybe that's just kind of like going along, again, with this like ebbs and flow of life sort of concept. And then finally, we have when it comes to matters of the heart, there is no right or wrong. Every choice you make expands your understanding of life and love. So for me, this kind of gives me the vibe of like, well, like you have to like date for a certain amount of time before you get into a commitment, or like there's a right or wrong way to sort of love people, or be in certain types of relationships, or again, like thinking of like this concept of like time and seasons of your life and ebbs and flows, which is what I keep talking about, and repeating myself. I think sometimes we can get caught up in like, oh, I'm this age and I'm not yet in this type of relationship, and like I should be. Like, there's like a lot of like pressure around like timing in relationships for whatever reason. And I think this card to me, like that sort of like message kind of stuck out in my head like when I pulled this. And I think it's sort of like saying like there's no like right or wrong way. This is kind of like your journey, and like love is love kind of thing. So which is good because if right now isn't necessarily like a season of love for you, and it's more of a season of career building, that's great because you don't have to feel that pressure of, oh well, I need to be in a relationship by this point in time, because that's time isn't real. So anyway, those are all the messages I have for you, pile 3. I hope this reading resonated, and if it did, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.